Hi, hello. So I wanted to make this video actually about how I make money as a therapist online because I think especially with COVID and with all the restrictions that have been in place, it has been quite tough for some therapists, and I've kind of found a way through myself, and I wanted to just share what I'd learned. I just quite often have people come to me and say, okay, how are you doing it? And I thought it would be useful just to put this down for the record. And part of that is because, having been kind of immersed myself a bit in marketing over the last few years, it's very clear to me that like at least 95% of marketing advice is utter drivel. I mean, it's just little memes and sound bites that people are pushing out there with some kind of dopamine attracting kind of image associated with it, and trying to pull people in to buy something, or buy a course or whatever and learning something. And it's just a way to make money for certain people who are pretty unscrupulous in the marketing business. And let's face it, the marketing business is not an especially scrupulous business. But that said, there are certain ways that you can approach things that tend to pay off, particularly in the long run. So what happened to me was, being a therapist from really about 2008, 2010 onwards, having done a lot of training, sometime around 2016, I've been living in a spiritual community for a long time, and I was starting to just take a few steps out and back into kind of normal city life here in Brighton, in the south of the UK. And the workshops I was running in the community, and my focus has been a lot on emotional expression, screaming and shouting and putting it all out in the group room kind of stuff. And what I realized when I started to try and do this in a city, in a modern city in the UK, was it's not easy to do that because, you can't really find a studio where you can make a lot of racket. You can't use a normal therapist studio because you've got some guy doing talking therapy next door. It's not obviously not appropriate to have someone screaming in the room next to them. Even in a lot of places, other studios, yoga studios, dance studios that you could find, it's not easy to find somewhere where people next door won't get disturbed and maybe call the cops. It was also the case at this time that screaming and shouting therapy had been kind of a little bit in a heyday, maybe 10, 15 years before, and it was coming down a little bit. Some big names in trauma therapy were getting a bit more against it and giving it a bit neg. And having done a great deal of it myself, even just training, and then living communally, it was also clear to me at some point that it was not a panacea. That it was a bit like a rather broad spectrum kind of way in, that was not necessarily serving everyone that was doing it, or that would give big releases at times, and could be very beneficial as a stopgap measure or to take someone deeper. But it was not really a whole panacea in the way that I'd kind of come to believe it about it myself some 10 years before. And so the fact of kind of starting to relocate, becoming a little bit like emotional expression is not the only way, I hit upon bioenergetics, because I'd also done quite a lot of bioenergetic work when I was training as a therapist, and I'd been interested in it. Some buddies of mine were doing it, and I'd actually been to like an afternoon course by a friend of mine, Anna Prem, and it had a powerful effect on me. And I just thought, I'm going to start doing this every day. And what I quickly came across was like, I didn't know that many techniques. So I thought, well, I'll go on YouTube or online and look for more techniques. And when I did that, I found like no one is teaching this stuff. There was a big name guy called Elliot Hulse, who's a huge influencer for young men out in South Florida. Good guy, I've met him. And he would talk about bioenergetics, and a few other people would talk about bioenergetics, but there were very few people out there who are like saying, okay, this is how you do this posture, and practically, and how it relates emotionally, it's this, and these kind of really just down to earth practical stuff. So I thought, well, I'll put out what I know, and this is like, and from there, from the absolute ground zero, I just started to create a YouTube channel and create content from literally no subscribers, and slowly build it up. What I didn't do was try and involve all my friends, because I wanted just to start something new and move out, and I recommend anybody in therapy to do the same. Do not just go around trying to enroll your friends to support you, because they may be friends and they may want to support you, but you need to forge client base out there, and you need to create content which attracts people who do not know you. And so I just started to create video content using my phone, basically. And it was pretty ramshackle and not very professional. And something I realized quite early on was that that doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't actually matter. Particularly as a therapist, you know, if people are going to consider working with you, they need to see you and feel you on video and make up their own mind. If you're trying to create too polished a kind of, you know, product, all smiling and you know, bullet points, whatever, it may well count against you in the longer run as a therapist. You know, it may well count against you. Something just really impromptu with your camera, you know, a little bit of setup, maybe a bit of lighting is more than adequate. It's more than adequate for this kind of market in my experience. Eventually I did invest in a little microphone which is about this big and which can kind of sit on top of a tripod and which cost about 20 quid. And I think that's quite kind of, that's my little bit of professionalism, and to have a tripod, and sometimes I have a couple of lights. But these things are kind of subsidiary, you know. You could read a lot of marketing material which would tell you your content has to look good. In my opinion, that is absolutely not the case. When you're looking for people who just want to work on themselves, they want to meet you and they want to feel you, and if it's a bit raw, that really works. So I just started creating content like that, and I tried to keep it fairly tight because, well, what actually happened was, you know, I was creating like one video a week, and slowly people were tuning in and getting into it. You know, I was getting another 5 subscribers here and another 10 subscribers here or whatever. And at some point along there, maybe when I had 1,000, I started to branch out a bit and create videos about other content and, you know, something about Bitcoin or about politics or whatever. And I quickly realized that people weren't interested in this. You know, they were coming to me to learn just what I knew about these specific types of therapy, basically, that I was covering. And so there was no value to me to try and, you know, this was an important lesson. You know, I don't need to be a guru. You know, I don't need to be a guru. I don't need to be someone who people want to follow, you know, the kind of online guru thing. And most therapists will be in that category as well. You know, you don't need to be. You just need, what I learned was, okay, I need to focus on content, keep learning myself and keep giving. Online, you'll see different types of characters who are making money. Some are called influencers. You know, influencers will have a huge audience. They'll be working on multiple platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And they're chucking out tons of content, like daily, you know. And they're using all sorts of marketing techniques to pull people in. And then they're going to sell them something, or something that their buddy runs and that they get a kickback, a kind of affiliate commission for. Those are influencers. There's nothing wrong with influencing. That's a different thing. And then you've got the gurus, you know, people who have just got fantastic charisma and presence. Elliot Hulse is a guru, you know. Tony Robbins is a guru. You know, they don't necessarily, they're just people who you just want to listen to. You know, you just want to listen to them because they're so cool, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, maybe the father you never had or mother you never had or whatever, and that kind of thing. And that's another way that these guys, you know, they can make money. They'll get a lot of subscribers and people just tune into their content. They get money from that. They may recommend products and get money from that. That's a different thing again. So for me, I'm a therapist, and I would consider that, you know, a good 95% of therapists, they're not gurus and they're not influencers. You know, you just need to focus on being a therapist. The big thing I learned, which I had really from the beginning actually, but looking back it was a learning, was to give. That's the bottom line. You need to give. You need to give value. You know, you need to give something. Now, if you're a therapist, you're probably not going to be giving like free stuff away, you know, like physical goods. So you need to give information. Information people can't really get in other places. I was giving out bioenergetic techniques, some emotional release techniques, 1 or 2, a little bit of Reiki and stuff, whatever. I'm giving out information. I'm giving some stuff around motivational psychology. I'm giving some stuff around success. There's a lot of people doing that as well. But with bioenergetics, I was one of the few people giving in that field, and that's what worked. So if you're a therapist, you know, what I would say is get specialist, really specialize in something, learn all about it, and start to give content out. Another thing that marketers will say, and that actually does work in my experience, is it's good to be perceived as an expert, which means you need to train and learn, you know, and, you know, write a book, do something like that. I wrote a book on bioenergetics. In fact, I wrote 2 books on bioenergetics. I'm going to write one on Reiki and character structure this year, and they're good books. I'd actually dallied a bit with writing a book before. I'd written a cheap novel a few years before, and that had just taught me a bit about the mechanics of writing a book and how to go about it and whatever. But look for something that you can do that makes you perceived as an expert, and that isn't necessarily getting a load of qualifications. That doesn't work so well online in my experience, you know. Having all these names after these letters after, I don't have any of that stuff, and I a little bit, but I deliberately avoid putting it out because I want people to meet me and feel like, hey, this is someone I want to work with, or maybe it's like, hey, this is someone I don't want to work with, in which case it's completely clear. I don't need to attract clients. That's not what it's about. What's far more important is to give and to be yourself. Give and be yourself, and just keep going. So slowly, as the years passed, I got to my first 1,000 subscribers, and then 2,000 and whatever. And even now I've only got about, I think, between 5,500 and 6,000 subscribers, but I can make a full-time living from that. Something else I would say is to there can be a tendency to try and spread yourself kind of thin because there's all sorts of different social media platforms and you may be trying to create content for all of them. That's something that's absolutely valuable if you're an influencer or if you're a guru with a marketing team behind you because you're making potentially a lot of money to pay the marketing team. As a therapist, I would pick one platform. And stick with it. If you like making video content, then get on YouTube. Whatever it is for you, get on that and stick with it. And put stuff out, not aimed towards your friends, put it out aimed towards people who want to meet you and hear you. So you don't need to drive yourself crazy trying to create content for multiple platforms because each one is a bit idiosyncratic. If I was to pick up Instagram, which I do a tiny little bit, then, I'd have to change my content. If I wanted to go on Facebook, I'd have to change my content again. There's no need to do this, so I can just rattle off. To me, YouTube is my main area where I'm working, where I'm creating content, but it's focused on bioenergetics for my channel. Any other social media stuff I have is just me rattling off a load of blah blah or being sociable with people. It's nothing to do really with therapy or very little. I'm not trying to give through those channels. Okay, so now that you've been kind of focusing on one platform and you've been giving content, you're not trying to just engage your friends or recruit them in some way. You're slowly pulling people in from the outside who are interested in the subject that you're teaching. They're not coming to you as a guru, they're coming because you know something, you have knowledge and you're willing to impart that knowledge. The question, of course, now is, okay, how do I make some money out of this? And for me, this happened as a very organic process. I did not have the intention to do how I now make money. And I think that is healthy because it allows for something kind of new to come into the space just as your own audience grows and begins to engage with you and you get to hear what they're looking for. When you, as a therapist, the obvious thing is to give one-to-one sessions online. That you've now been seen as an expert, you have clear knowledge about something, and people want to consult you for a personal session. So that's obviously one possibility. The other thing is it could feed into any workshops you're running in a specific location or one-to-one sessions that you offer physically in a location. But for me, the main thing that came up really was that from about 2018 onwards, people were asking me, I want to go deeper with this work. I followed some of your workouts. I want to learn more. I want to learn some Reiki and characterology as well. I want to learn, how can I really start to unlock my whole body? Why aren't you creating like a longer course, And initially my whole thing was like, well, this is quite deep therapy and you can't really do it online. I was quite closed-minded towards the idea. And then slowly I began to think about that a little bit more in early 2019. And at some point I thought, I'm just going to give it a go. And so I started to create a course, in fact a very long course called Bioenergetics The Journey, which is 52 weeks of content. And actually for the average person that completes it, they probably take something like 1.5 to 2 years. And so that was the course I came up with. And online content, online courses like this, what's generally called e-learning, and nowadays it's a big growth industry. I didn't know any of this stuff at the time. I just wanted to create a bit of a course because people were asking me for it, and I thought it would be an exciting challenge to deliver something online. But it's a big area, and it's a super growth industry, in all these business terms. And what's particularly cutting edge about it at the moment is transformational content. Not just content where you're doing an e-learning course because you want to get to the next pay grade in your computer IT job, or because you want to learn basket weaving or something like that. Nothing wrong with that, but something that offers some level of personal transformation within it, which is a different thing, and that's where therapeutic content comes in, because that's mostly what we're dealing with, or it's a big part of what we're dealing with is transformation, or the way to move beyond blocks or barriers internally. So I started to create content for this course, and one of the exciting things about creating online content, particularly for a long course, is you don't have to create all the content in advance, because most of the technical things that you use to deliver the content, which I'll talk about a little bit later, allow you to drip feed the content, because that's actually beneficial for people doing it. I'm doing a 52-week course. I don't want people to jump from lesson 1 to lesson 17 and then, I think I'll try number 35. That is not going to support them. They might want to do that, but I know full well that if they can slowly engage with something over a long period of time, that's going to support them, because I was the same. I was exactly the same. I would jump all over the place, but it supported me to not be able to jump all over the place and have to just be present and move through something slowly, and then I got a lot more from it. So I started to create content for this course. I created about 8 weeks of content, and then I launched the course. So I created 8 weeks out of 52 weeks. And I launched the course at the beginning of December 2019, and it was super successful. Straight away, people were signing up. They could either subscribe for a monthly basis or pay a one-off lifetime access. And I was getting subscribers, and I was getting people paying money, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. I've covered all my costs in setting it up in under 24 hours. And it's going really great. And of course, a big part of that was because for the last 3 years, I had been engaging people on my YouTube channel with direct, relevant content to what they were interested in. And so there were a certain number of people from that crowd who were willing to pay and to sign up to do something with me. So, seeing that this was a success, I of course continued to create the content weekly. So I was always some weeks ahead of whoever, because it's drip fed on a weekly basis for course lessons. And when I'd completed that, I ended up doing a part 2 facilitator training, because people were interested in that, and that was a whole new mind game of looking at how I can create something. I got accreditation from a UK holistic body for the course, which was another thing that I think is really valuable to do. And then I started to create courses and other things. I created recently a 26 module course on Reiki and breathwork, and now I'm starting to create some short form courses, like 7 module courses on kind of interesting areas of modern psychology. Interesting in the sense that people are engaged with them. Stuff like, narcissism, stuff like underachievement, stuff like being the nice guy or the good girl pleaser kind of behaviors, stuff like online pornography addiction. And so I'm creating and fleshing out courses in all these areas, which are more, one-off things that people can buy and then follow along with 7 modules. And I'm, super happy and super excited about all of this. And I feel like, I'm bringing something useful that's psychological, that's also, got a body-based side to it, and I'm delivering it through an online format, and it feels really great. And I also have a way of engaging with people whilst they're on the course through a chat group and weekly sharings and stuff like this. That's for the longer courses, and it's just very, very nourishing, and it's good to do, and it is absolutely a good financial business. So these are ways that you can create money. Like I said, you've got the one-to-one sessions, you've got the stuff you traditionally do as a therapist, and then you have the possibility of creating these kind of dynamic, transformational e-learning courses. And I think what's important is to not be too close-minded about it. I was close-minded about the possibility of making a bioenergetics course online that people could just follow along with, and it took me 6 months to a year to come around to the idea and then say, okay, how could I do that? Instead of thinking of all the things that are in the way, be aware of that stuff, but how also can I move forwards with it? And, these days, like I said, it's a huge growth industry. There's a lot of people getting involved. There's a lady I kind of very vaguely know online in America who's making a huge sum of money out of her spiritual healing course, which people just love her energy. It's not that she's super professional and looking really fantastic. She just gives this great course on spiritual healing, and people really, really engage with it, and it works very well online for people. So, be open-minded, see what people who are engaging with you what do they want? Not what your friends want, not what other people are talking. What do people who are engaged with you, who are interested in what you're doing, what are they looking for? What are they looking for? And then what can you create? That's important. Okay, so having talked a little bit about this stuff, I just wanted to give a little bit of technical info, because what I also noticed was technical info around e-learning, because what I also noticed was there's a whole marketing industry selling you stuff about e-learning as well. You know, and so you can easily end up buying something that you really don't need or spending a lot of money, you know. And even people giving good information about course creation may also be selling stuff on the back. You know, I was checking out a guy recently in the States and he had a lot of good information at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, he's like, okay, he's basically selling Kajabi, which is, you know, a platform, a whole integrated platform, which is great, but it's going to cost you, you know, $150 to $300 a month. And that may be a lot of money that you don't really need to spend. So what happened for me was, you know, when I started to think, okay, I want to create an e-learning course, I had to go and I looked for experts online and I found they're all trying to sell me something. That's a complete waste of time. You know, like in therapy, you always say to people, reach out for support. Waste of time in this particular field, waste of time. They're just people trying to sell you stuff. That was my experience. And then I checked in with a couple of buddies of mine who had a little bit of knowledge. One of them suggested something and I thought about trying that. But what I realized was I needed to invest like 2 hours of my time for about a month to just slowly and systematically check out all the different options. You know, and you've got loads of things where, like Teachable or Udemy, where, you know, you can easily create online content and they have loads of customers there, but they control the content and they take a big chunk of your money. And me, I thought, I'm not going to do that. I've already got a big customer base, you know, for the people who engage in my work on YouTube. I don't need to do that. I want to create something where I control the content and I take the money. So then I started to look at WordPress, which is one of the more kind of old and modular, you know, it's been around a long time, modular forms of websites, and you can get plugins for it which can deliver content. So I started to check those out. I checked out Thrive Apprentice after a week of trying with that and paying for it all, and I realized it didn't work. So for me personally, it was too complex and it didn't do all the things I wanted it to do. And so I got my money back off them. You get 28-day money back guarantee on most of these things. And I started checking out more and I came across a thing called LearnDash, which was like $159 a year and which was very simple to set up and which was totally fine. And then I was a little bit, and that just delivers the content basically. And then I was also a little bit like, well, I don't want people to pirate my content. You know, I'm creating all this content for people to pay to access by as a subscription or as a one-time fee. I don't want them to be able to pirate it and I find my content rocking up on YouTube or something. So I thought like, okay, I want to protect it. So I also got like a £200 a year package with Vimeo, which is set up, I upload the course onto there and then it's delivered only through my website and you can't get it off Vimeo, you can't get it off any other website. And you know, nothing is perfect against pirating, but that's fairly good. So, you know, those were the things I used and really that means that I'm paying like, you know, about £300 or £400 a year to basically have a whole online platform for myself, essentially. Whereas, you know, you could easily be paying that every 2 months with a lot of the packages that people are trying to sell you. And I'm also controlling all my content and I'm getting all the money for my content. So, you know, that really worked for me. This WordPress with a theme that works with LearnDash and then using Vimeo in the background to actually host the content. Okay, so just to sum up what I've learned, you know, for a start, specialize in one aspect of therapy and then develop expertise in it, really learn about it, you know, become an expert in it so you feel confident and then give, you know, actually first pick a social media channel that works for you and then give content and give it regularly. And then after a period of time, when you start to develop a following, you know, just start to suss out on your own, you know, by listening to people, you know, what do they want from you? What do they want from you? And look for a way that you can fulfill what they're looking for. That's what's worked for me. Thank you very much for tuning into this video and I shall speak to you again soon.